Ich empfinde das Leben im Körper als ziemlich eng und ziemlich klein.
I feel that life in the body is rather tight and rather small. Many people feel that way. That's why we always have such a longing for wherever, a longing into the vastness. And I have experienced this vastness. Although I'm still alive in this body. And that's why I know very well that it exists, this vastness. You can even experience it while you are alive. Maybe this is going a bit too far, but this experience has simply taught me how far I can expand. I'm sure that if I had died, I would have gone even further. That's why I've been quite relaxed about death since then, and have almost an absurd sense of anticipation. I want to live. I also like to live very, very much. But that wasn't bad either, I must say.
Miss Umrig, you were diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy as a child. Muscular atrophy, an incurable disease that forced you into a wheelchair. At that time, your parents moved from Kazakhstan to Germany. Numerous other life crises followed, so that you describe yourself as an expert of new beginnings. And you also say, quote, "In the embrace of death, I chose life." With this, you allude to a near-death experience you had at the age of 29. We could certainly have numerous conversations about your eventful life, but for Thanatos TV, I would like to start with this experience. Please tell us what happened at the time.
Yes, that was 7 years ago by now. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it was a long time ago. It was just a normal evening in April. I was in a bad mood. I remember that clearly. I was so knackered that day and choked on my food. I wish it was an exciting story, but it was actually a totally stupid story. I was eating salad and fish sticks and stupidly inhaled the breading. I almost choked on that. I had a friend of mine here by coincidence. Whether there are coincidences, I don't know. He had just come from this training and spent the night here. He revived me. That was really coincidence on so many levels, a happy coincidence that I was still alive and that he was there.
How can one imagine that? Suffocated? Did something get into the windpipe?
Exactly. I inhaled the breading and it went neither forward nor backward. I don't even want to tell you the details now because it's just also irrelevant. But it was a moment of, it won't come out on its own. It wasn't even a cough. It just didn't work anymore. That was a very intense experience.
He resuscitated you. Did you have to go to the hospital afterwards, or was that not necessary?
Yes, I did faint actually. I lost consciousness at some point. I was really already close to brain death. It was a miracle, again a happy coincidence, that I didn't suffer any mental disability, but rather it feels as if, strangely enough, I gained a clarity from it that I didn't have before. This would certainly have to be discussed with a neuroscientist. What exactly happened due to this lack of oxygen? The fact is that I lost consciousness and saw my life flash before my eyes in a matter of seconds. And I felt and heard a great deal. I heard my sister's voice. I have a little sister who I love very much, and I thought she said to me, she was there then, I heard her scream, "Stay here, I still need you." I told her later and she was like, I didn't say that. I didn't do that. That was quite interesting. Now I get goosebumps these days. Those were the kind of experiences I had that night. At the hospital, everyone was just amazed. I woke up and the first thing I said was, "Shit, what happened here?" The first thing I did was curse. At that moment it was clear, she's here, she's back. She's cursing, so she's alive. And then I was back.
You talked about seeing your life flash before your eyes. Could you describe that in a little more detail? Were there particular experiences, ones that particularly touched you?
Those were situations that touched me very much, or that were particularly painful. That's more how I would describe it. Now, in retrospect, after 7 years, I would describe it in such a way that I felt all the traumas that I had had up to that evening. Particularly that they, so to speak, flowed through my body again. And I felt a kind of activation of life, like impulses that shot through my brain like little electric shocks. It's very, very hard to explain in retrospect, I realize. I saw no light, no figures. No one received me or anything. But it was like lightning bolts coming through my body, my brain. And as I said, my sister, who means a lot to me, was very present for me.
Was there a decision for you to either return or not?
Yes, it felt like that. When I heard my sister's voice, it was like a decision. I'm going back to her. I then noticed how life, I described this in my TED Talk, came back into my body from below, through my feet. So I didn't come from above, not into the heart space, but really from below, through the feet, back into my body. When I got to chest level, I was back. Then I woke up.
A summary for you is that even in this state of oxygen deficiency, or whatever has happened in the brain in the process, there is something like a conscious experience. Could one summarize it like that?
Yes, there was a conscious experience, definitely, but a wide one. I feel that life in the body is rather tight and rather small. Many people feel that way. That's why we always have such a longing for wherever, a longing into the vastness. And I've experienced this vastness, although I'm still alive in this body. And that's why I know very well that it exists, this vastness. You can even experience it while you are alive. Maybe this is going a bit too far, but this experience has simply taught me how far I can expand. I'm sure that if I had died, I would have gone even further. That's why I've been quite relaxed about death since then, and have almost an absurd sense of anticipation. I want to live. I also like to live very, very much. But that wasn't bad either, I must say.
You are sure that you will not experience these limitations of the body then?
Yes, definitely. There is, after all, a state of mind that knows exactly that there is this vastness independent of the body. We all have that. There's a state where one knows I can expand. It's just that we as human beings so rarely allow ourselves to do that. This experience has taught me how simple it can be. Which is not to say that I would recommend choking. It is uncomfortable. Especially the first few minutes are really unpleasant and quite horrible.
What has changed for you and your view of life as a result of your experience?
We all know at some point as a child or as a teenager that we will die. That's clear. Only when you experience death as closely as I did, then you know it can happen again at any time. There is no security, that is for me. And then I thought, okay, what are you actually doing here? What exactly are you doing here? I wish I could tell you now I woke up and then I changed my life. Yeah, I was totally happy. Unfortunately not. I first fell into a total crisis. I was depressed, but not diagnosed, and a mega black hole emotionally. I thought, what even is the point here in this life? But that made me really dedicate myself to my story, to my body as well, and to set priorities. At that time, I was in my late 20s, around 30, and I realized, okay, if this is happening again now, what is this really about? And that changed me. I prioritize differently. I still make mistakes, but I weigh them. Is it really worth it to get upset with the neighbors for 1,000 years? Nah, I don't have time. Or, is it worth thinking about for a long time? Do I say yes or no to the interview now? What is my first impulse? First impulse is yes. So why not? We should not always think everything through so much and not go through the world with a blank look, but also turn on the light that I felt inside me and not be afraid to always blind other people or make mistakes. Mistakes happen.
You have now described this briefly, but there were very profound after effects. You write that you were afraid to eat, that you lost a lot of weight. Do you think that these experiences were necessary for you to ultimately come to your realizations?
I think there was simply no other way. When you're almost choking on food, there's a danger. Food. It's like people who fall off a horse. They're also afraid of a horse at first, or in a car accident. And that's exactly how it was for me with food. Unfortunately, to this day, I don't eat fish sticks anymore. I probably still love fish sticks, but I just don't eat them anymore. That has stuck, but I really addressed that issue, the trauma as well, in terms of body therapy. I didn't want to be restricted and let it define me. I really like to eat. That was a very intense aftermath. I didn't eat much and I didn't dare to do a lot of things. I was so insecure about life, really insecure about life. And also the question, am I still allowed to be here? Why did I come back at all? What force brought me back here? Part of me was also thinking, man, why didn't you die? That would have been good too, somehow. Life itself is not that easy. That would have been good. Part of me was glad, of course, because I like living too. But there were these two conversations inside me. What was the force that decided to do this? What is there to do here? And what force didn't have the power to bring me there? Why not? What reasoning was there between these parts? These were the questions that occupied me a lot afterwards.
What would you say ultimately persuaded you to stay here? Was there a particular task?
Yes, a task is also possible. It doesn't always have to be something big. That is also my answer. A life task doesn't always have to be something huge. It can also be, I'm here to relax. That can also be a task. At the same time, I believe that I didn't die because I wasn't finished yet. I haven't started living my life's task yet. I didn't have the courage. I was too young. I was always too young to show my wisdom. When someone in their mid or late 20s shares all their inner wisdom, I think, are you nuts? Girl, what are you trying to tell me? You're way too young. And that's true. When I hear young girls today, one part of me thinks, wow. And another part thinks, come on, grow up first. I was just too young to show all that. Only now am I getting into this position, and also more and more into the age where I allow this more and more.
You once formulated, quote, "In the embrace of death, I chose real life." What is real life?
Real life is a feeling of vitality. When you listen inside yourself, you know exactly, am I alive or not? There is no life in the sense of you have to eat this and that, or live there and there, or the like. These are all made-up concepts. I look at myself in the mirror and I can say about myself, yes, I am honest. Yes, I feel alive. I am true to myself and I am very loyal with my soul. This loyalty with oneself, that is vitality for me. To decide, this is also important for me to emphasize, you don't have to die for it. I was once asked in an interview, you were lucky enough to almost die. What do we do who don't have that experience? Then I always say, imagine you die. Eventually, you will anyway. I don't want to promote death and portray it as something great, but rather take a somewhat pragmatic approach and show death exists, and it can take you sooner than you think. And when you're old, quite honestly, time will run out. You'll regret a lot of things. I just don't feel like doing that.
I would like to talk once again about the changes brought about by the near-death experience and also by the aftermath. Do you have the feeling that certain abilities, sensations have developed or deepened?
Yes, definitely. I have the feeling, how can I describe it well? As if all the emotions that are predisposed in all of us, in some a little more, a little less, as if I always had a kind of cork in my champagne bottle. As if the emotions were in a champagne bottle, this image kept coming back to me. And it was that night as if that cork had popped loose. All at once, everything came out. All the anger, all the sadness, but also all the love. It was bubbling out of me. Managing all these emotions was not so easy. Who of us has learned to feel freely? How can I feel freely without snapping? How can I be angry without ruining everything? How can I be sad without wanting to die right away? And how can I love without intention? We don't know all that, but I felt all of that at once like a cocktail of emotions. It bubbled out of me and I suddenly experienced, I don't like the word so much, but I'll say it anyway, like a kind of enlightenment. But it didn't come from myself. I suddenly understood everything. It's totally crazy when I tell it like that, but that's the way it was.
It didn't come from you. Did you consider that a gift?
Yes. Or maybe it came from the spiritual space, from the universal. It is already mine. I take it quite personally that I was allowed to experience that. But it happened somehow, and since then I also see people's stories differently. That's why I work the way I do since then, because I can see much differently.
Please tell us a little bit about your work. What do you mainly do?
I work as an author and a speaker, and also as a mentor for people who are in the process of a new beginning, whatever that is, who are inclined or willing by a crisis or by an event in their life, or maybe also by a feeling of, I don't want to anymore, or I can't anymore, to finally change their life. This is my work, only with the difference I have no concepts, so I have no flip chart, and there's also no way of, then you do this, then you write this.
So you don't follow a concept?
Then you do this, and then you dance to this music, and then you have the new beginning. But rather, it is an individual process to deal with your own history, with your own parents, with your own soul essence. My gift since this evening is that I think I can see this soul essence most of the time.
About your life story, what was it like as a child when you were diagnosed? What do you remember about it? What was it like later for you as a teenager, with the awareness that you couldn't lead a life like the others? That was certainly challenging, but perhaps also preparatory for what you're doing today.
I think so too. My whole life before that was a preparation. I can definitely see that today. But while you're in these stupid phases, you can't see it that way, especially not as a child and not as a teenager. I grew up in a village in Kazakhstan. You can't even find it on Google. In a really great house with a huge garden. I had a bicycle that I could still ride. My father made it very possible for me to be physically active at that time. I had a very loving family. My grandma was a great woman. I didn't understand that I had a disability. I didn't feel that because everyone loved me so much and literally carried me with their hands. Because I didn't have a wheelchair, I was carried. I didn't understand that. I only understood from the reactions, for example, of my father, that something was wrong with me. At that time, they traveled all over the USSR with me in search of some healers, shamans, all kinds of doctors. Fix the child. I did not understand what was wrong with me, but I understood that something was not normal with me. When I was 7, we moved to Germany as ethnic German immigrants because my mother is German. Here came the diagnosis, and with it, the next stage of my challenging life. I went to a special school and sat as a very intelligent child among children with learning disabilities. That was very difficult for me to deal with. Even later on, because I feel that the system deprived me of an opportunity for education. I now have my high school diploma. I fought very hard for it. It was very important to me. It was important for me to prove how intelligent I am and that I have an education. I also studied, but I didn't finish. I dropped out because I realized I wanted to start my own business. I then started making art. I've always been in search of myself.
Was it that they concluded from your physical disability that you were not intelligent?
No, it wasn't at all a question of whether I wasn't intelligent, but at that time, that was in the 90s or early 2000s, there was no possibility of accommodating me anywhere. Or they didn't want to. I was physically very dependent on help, and then I was told things like, "Who's going to unpack your pens from your bag?" Sentences like that made me so insecure as a young girl that I thought, that's right. How am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to live alone? How am I supposed to do anything on my own? That pretty much took away my courage. But at the same time, I thought, yes, but somehow the others are doing it too. There are these kids or young people. How do they do it? I'll be able to do it. And I always knew one thing. You just need the right people to reach your goals. I realized that early on, management has become one of my strengths because of my disability. That was my school. When entrepreneurs tell me now what they don't know or can't do with employees or how they should get the job done, they're always surprised that I have the answers to these questions. Because my life taught me that. I just know. I know how to lead people.
In your text, your lectures, and also in other interviews, you have summed up very well many great insights. So I would like to invite you now to a short quote rap. So I'm going to quote you and ask you to comment, all right?
Yeah, okay, I'll try.
Inner strength is also just a muscle.
Yes, I think no one is born strong. There are tendencies, of course. There are children who are straightforward and loud from the start and know how to get things. But that doesn't mean they're strong either. And then there are the quiet ones. They're just as strong. I think everything is an exercise. But you have to deal with things as well. If you want to become strong, you have to ask yourself, what does strength mean to me? And practice that over and over again. Don't just watch some YouTube video or read an interview and then think, ah yes, well, but it's not me. I believe that everyone is capable of a great deal, but you have to keep at it.
You can't take love or anger personally.
A very nice quote. With anger, of course, it's very pleasant. If someone is angry with me, then I can say, great, that has nothing to do with me. That is his or her anger. You shouldn't take that so personally. Unfortunately, it's the same with love. There's rarely unconditional love, except perhaps for one's own child. That's why I think everything is just a mirror. I bring out something in the other person. If someone is angry with me, I bring out the anger. Great. Great way to transform. Great. But also with love. When someone says to me, you're so-and-so, you're so beautiful, you're so smart, of course I'm happy. Compliments are always nice. At the same time, I also think, yes, this person sees their own beauty in me. How beautiful. I can now accept love very well. And at the same time, there's also a distance in me, perhaps from my wiser self, which says, actually, this person only sees their own beauty and love in me.
You should allow more insanity in your life.
Yes. I think we should freak out much more often. If you look at kids, they're jumping and they're skipping or they're making funny noises. You really have to look at kids and see how they regulate themselves. They make weird movements like that or just scream around or play in the park. But as we get older, every year we get more and more controlled. In the end, we are so controlled that we forget to smile. We become more and more rigid. and we end up dying as rigid as if a stick had been stuffed into our veins. That is not vitality. That's why I think we need spaces. Maybe not always and everywhere, but we need spaces where we allow ourselves to feel disgust, where we allow ourselves to feel joy and ecstasy. Where can we feel alive and with whom? Where can we be human?
A quote that may not be immediately clear on its own. You once said in a conversation, "There is no task for me."
Yes, that's from my TED Talk. There I talked about how I was always searching. What is my purpose? That's one of the biggest questions of all. What's the meaning of life? What am I supposed to be doing? Once you break free of that and allow yourself to look out the window and think, I have no idea what this life is for. I have no idea. I do my best every day, but in the end, I have no idea what we're doing here. Now let's be honest. I don't know if I'm going to think tonight that I said the best thing today. I don't. And that's okay. Tomorrow I'll be a different person again. And I don't have a job right now at this moment.
You don't always have to chase a big task.
No, and yet you're allowed to feel valuable.
After all your experiences and insights, what is your relationship to death today?
I don't wait or cheer for death every day. I also haven't finished all my legacies yet. Actually, one would have to prepare better. Actually, I should make a chart. What all is there to do should I choke again? Where are all the passwords? Which accounts do I have? Who gets my cell phone? I'm exaggerating now, yes. I don't have all that at all, which is a bit silly. Still, I think this world is so crazy right now. I think I'm still going to be alive. I still have a little bit to go. I keep seeing the number 64. I'm going to be in my early 60s or so. So I still have a little bit of time. But I'm quite happy if it doesn't take that long then. I don't feel like still managing my life at 80 the way I do now. I have no desire to do that.
If you were to meet a fairy godmother who could grant your greatest heart's desire, what would it be?
I have many wishes. I have already achieved many things that I wanted as a teenager. I pretty much achieved all of that 2 years ago. Now I thought, what do I want? I would like to have my own retreat center by the sea. I would like that, I think. I wish I had a place by the ocean where I could be with wild nature every day. I would wish for that, yes. I could say I wish to be even happier, but I think at some point it's good with happiness too. I'm pretty happy. I wish for a place where I can be with nature every morning.
So basically an optimization of your good life, not a completely different life.
That is a very interesting question. No, I want to keep this life. I don't want all that work to be for nothing, honestly. It was too hard. The work was too intense. I would like to savor it right now, in this body, in this life, but until the end.
I think you are doing a very good job, Miss Umrig. Thank you very much for the interview.
Yes, thank you.